Well, radio is a very powerful tool that has the ability to reach remote and marginalised communities, providing them with vital information and, of course, a platform to express their voices.
And over the years, radio broadcasting has of course also continued to be a strong medium, also being used to highlight the impact of climate change and also promote sustainable practices in a way that I suppose only radio can do.
So as today we celebrate World Radio Day, this morning we take a closer look at how, as a public broadcaster, the SABC is using its radio platforms to educate and promote awareness and to mobilise communities, with the theme in mind for this year, to take action on climate change. Let's take a look at this clip before we get into the interview.
Right now, it is 17 minutes before 1 o'clock. Now, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange is encouraging South Africans to check whether they may be eligible to claim dividends, which currently stand at approximately 4.5 billion rands. And this is over 300,000 South Africans are eligible to claim these dividends from companies such as Old Mutual, Sasol and Naspers. But for further details as to what all of this is, we join on the line now by the Director of Marketing and Corporate Affairs at the JSE, Wotshela. Vuyo, thanks for your time. Welcome to Update at Noon.
Thank you very much, Sakina, and good day to the listeners. And it's really amazing to be on board to share this campaign that I'm really passionate about.
Vuyo, 4.5 billion rands lying somewhere, and people could be eligible and they don't know this. So talk to us about how all of this comes about.
What does it feel like to see yourself on radio?
Weird.
See yourself on radio. Nada Wotshela is SABC Group Executive of Radio, and she joins us on the big white couch this morning. It's so nice to have you and to see you, radio folk, because that's something we don't normally get to do. Yeah, but we say we have a face for radio. Eh?
Indeed, a face for radio. but I must say, you know, Nada, things have changed so much in radio. Gone are the days when radio was purely theatre of the mind, and you know, you had to imagine what these personalities look like, and they never matched what came in your mind.
Exactly.
I know, but wasn't that the beauty, you know, about radio? You're quite right, Sakina. Maybe I should thank you guys for having me here today on World Radio Day, and say hello to your viewers. Indeed, we have invested a lot in the digital transformation of radio. Right now, we talk visual radio, where you could actually watch the radio host presenting the show, or a guest that they are interviewing. So there's very interesting changes.
So, I mean, I love the theatre of the mind, because the whole idea of reading is to imagine what the character looks like, and you can invent your own personality. Yeah. But the bottom line is that, yes, visually you may represent or imagine what the person looks like, but when you're on radio, you gotta have your, I'll call it stuff. You've got to have your stuff together.
Exactly.
Because there's almost no room for error. And I mean, radio is something that anybody can pick up anywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. And I still think it remains one of the most powerful mediums to get information out there.
Indeed.
What is it looking like when we worry about the threat of so much around, Nada?
Look, there's really a lot of things that are threatening radio right now. I mean, there's so much clutter in the environment that we're broadcasting in. There's social media. People have so many alternatives. But I think what you said, that you've got to have your stuff right, is what, you know, is saving radio right now. The fact that radio has a personality. People listen to Sakina, people listen to Kathy, they develop a relationship with Kathy. She becomes a credible source of news and information, which is not something you can get from your social media. I mean, you just read through the stuff, and a lot of it, most of the time, isn't even true. But people, they have that loyalty and that trust that if it's said by Lady D, then it's gotta be true.
Yeah.
And then that's very important, because as you say, Nada, it's radio a lot of the time is personality, because see, they can't see you like people see us on TV.
Yeah.
So there has to be other things that draw people in. But with that, you spoke about, entering the digital age and just the overall evolution of radio. But what would you say are the main challenges today for radio?
There's a plethora of challenges for radio right now. There's a lot of competition. Remember, SABC used to be a monopoly in the space. There's a lot of competition from other linear broadcasters. There's competition from digital platforms. So our audiences are getting fragmented on a daily basis. People, can choose, how they consume the medium. Even the traditional radio station, is not only, you can't just pick it up, from the FM receiver anymore. You can listen through your mobile devices and so on. And once people get on those mobile devices, then their attention is taken, all sorts of direction. But what we have done, as the SAP says, SABC Radio, is that we have embraced the digital transformation and the digital explosion. We have used those platforms to actually enhance what we do. People are able to download the conversations that they have missed, or when conversations are continuing on the station's digital platform, they're able to make a contribution long after the presenter has switched off their mic. So we're using those to also enhance, instead of shying away from the developments in technology.
I'm fascinated with the theme for this year, because climate change and radio, I'm almost struggling in a way to find the link, but is it a information spread? Is it something that you can get the message out to communities? Talk to me about this theme that's been adopted this year.
Look, I think it's a powerful theme. Because it's something that affects everybody all around the world. And radio is known as that medium that can reach communities, whether they are rural, whether they are illiterate. People have access to radio. It's easily accessible, and it is adaptable. We can change the format of a program immediately when there's a challenge that is pressing out there in the community. And therefore, using radio, to raise awareness about climate change, I think it's a very powerful medium that can make a difference. Look at how we made a difference with HIV and AIDS, in the early days of the disease. We had programs like Soul City, we created radio dramas, and it really made a dent, in changing people's behavior. Look at the times of the COVID pandemic. Radio became a very powerful tool, to spread the message, of safety. You can rally radio anytime to drive a message. We can rally communities behind one common cause.
And you speak of climate change. We're looking at the Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations. And as the SABC, we're in a unique position, Nada, where we have a public service mandate.
Yes.
That we need to actually carry out. So whereas, for example, commercial radio may have a lot more leeway, it's different from your public service stations who have to carry that public service mandate.
When it comes to challenges such as climate change, as the SABC, we don't even exempt our commercial radio stations. If it is a theme that we adopt, everybody carries it, but everybody has to be creative around it. Of course, they can't create, blocks of programming at Metro FM, for instance, where they just talking about climate change and interviewing people, but they can do snippets, drop-ins in the music programs that they are doing, in the sports show. They can find creative ways to also, spread the message.
I want to talk a little bit more fun aspects of radio, because everyone has their first memory of it, or how it started for them, or where they broke into it. Or I go back to movies and the times where you would see sort of soldiers gathered around a crackling radio to try and find out if the war has ended, and what the new developments are. And nothing really changed. These are still the scenes that we see within South Africa, where people gather around a radio where a soccer match is taking place.
Exactly.
And they're listening to the running commentary. And it is one that is, it is a mass broadcaster that everybody has a buy-in to and everyone can afford to have. So, I mean, these are things that I am going through in my mind. I'm going to ask Sakina that question. What made you fall in love with radio? How did you get your first opportunity?
So I think it was my 13th birthday, and my mom bought me this little radio.
Yeah.
I still remember her so clearly. It was her. It was just this little thing.
Yeah.
And it was honey written in pink. And
that was
it. Because then I used to listen to the radio. It was there. And I just remember listening to talk radio and just being so engrossed and engaged in the discussions through all the crackle, because it was on AM at the time.
Absolutely, to put the bunny ears in the right direction and tune it in. What about you? What was your first?
Oh, wow. For me, it had always been around me. My father was on radio.
Oh, really? Oh,
when
nice.
I was growing up. Even, visiting SABC studios in King Williamstown, when Radio Xhosa, it was Radio Xhosa then, used to be in King Williamstown. I used to be fascinated, but I was in such a privileged position because I could watch the magic unfolding in front of me. Like, I would be there on Sundays, used to go to work to produce choirs, there'd be maybe a live choir performing, or a recording of a jazz band, and he would be directing those kinds of productions. So it's a world that I can never separate myself from.
It's in your blood.
I want a standout moment from you as well.
Well, I mean, I can give you many, but I can start off with what you triggered in my mind was a memory of sitting in my bedroom listening to radio. But I would have a tape, and I would record the music that I loved, the top 100 or whatever. It used to be something that was simulcast, and at the time 5FM was just like the station, And you would I'd record the top 40, and I would listen to the songs and then have to record it and then wind up the tape and then blah, blah, blah. I mean, those were probably my earliest, but then I always had a fascination and a love. And again, it stems back to my dad. He would listen all the time and get so involved in radio. And then let's not forget simulcast, because we would have to put a picture on and then put the radio on so that you could simulcast it into another language. Guys, radio.
Days of Radio Metro, when you tried to record something and the DJ would be speaking
over the song.
You just can't do it. I'm trying to record this.
That's amazing.
A quick one. The 2010 World Cup, the announcement of the winners of the 2010 World Cup. I'll never forget that. I was in Laudium on a Saturday morning. I was at a school, and I remember running back to the car to switch on the radio to hear the announcement.
Got it.
And just going crazy.
Everyone has a memory. Leave us with a message. I know we're getting out of time. Funny thing is, no one's shouting at us to end the interview, which is not normal. Yeah, they just told us.
That
What's your
doing
message?
well.
What's your message?
Well. I think there's so much negativity and clutter in the world today, but I think radio has really played a very important role, in uniting people, in rallying them behind, very important causes. I would like to say radio is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
We have very dedicated men and women in the SABC, especially in the PBS portfolio, that are doing very important work, especially in the African language portfolio. The important work that they are doing of preserving our languages in South Africa is really something that brings us closer, and that brings us closer to our listeners, and that motivates us to do what we are doing, and therefore will always be there for South Africans.
Radio must never go anywhere. That's where I know both and I and both Sakina and myself started there, and still love it. I mean, I'm not working on radio at the moment. You are, but I know that I will go back there because it is a passion.
Yeah.
And a beautiful passion to have.
It's addictive.
It is. It is indeed. Nada, thank you for talking to us.
Thank you so
very
much.
Special day. Nada Wotshela, SABC Group Executive of Radio, talking to us about the importance and the role that radio plays in responding to climate change, and much, much more as we celebrate World Radio Day. And you heard it, radio is going nowhere.
Oh, no.
No ways.